I took the train. It was after midnight. I walked to the train. I was wearing Daisy Dukes, must have been 6 inches long from my waist, like tiny little shorts. My thighs were rubbing together the moment I left the house. And a crop top with my belly out, crop top, t-shirt, Daisy Dukes, baseball hat, big chain. And I had like a little jacket, like a camo jacket, but I tied it around my waist. And I rode the train like that at midnight by myself.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. My guest on today's show is Big Dipper, rapper and co-host of the podcast Sloppy Seconds. Before moving to his current home in LA, he lived for a few years in New York City, where he cut his teeth performing at Westgay, an influential queer night held at a bar called Westway. See what they did there? Really clever, right? In Manhattan every Tuesday night between 2012 and 2015. We talked about waiting in line even when your name is on the guest list, avoiding fluids so you don't have to deal with the toilets in the club, and that magical feeling of leaving the club just as the sun is rising.
So I put out my first song when I was 26-ish. Yeah. And shortly after I put that song out, I was invited to do a press, like a feature in a magazine with other queer hip hop artists. And the moment after that happened, I was like, oh, I'm not going to, I'm from Chicago. I like the vibe in Chicago. I'm not really a New York person. But after that, I flew out there. I did this press. I was like featured with these other people. And I was like, oh, this is what I always say. But like after that moment, I was like, oh, I'm Beyonce. Like, watch out, world. Like, this is going to be it. I'm going to take over. And, I just thought about like music and club and performance. Like there's so much more of that happening in New York. Let's do it. So I moved to Brooklyn and I had a few friends living there right before Hurricane Sandy. So maybe that was 2013 or 2014. I can look it up. I'm horrible with dates. Oh, 2012. Yeah. Okay. So I moved in 2012.
Yeah. So what was the switch? What was the thing that made you go, oh, actually, New York's kind of all right?
I never really made the switch. I just thought, like I enjoyed living in New York because it was exciting, because it was new. I liked that New York energy of sort of like being gruff. Being able to be like, no, hold the door open for me, or like bang on the hood of a cab if they were driving while you were trying to cross the street, or yell your order at a deli, in order to be heard. Like I enjoyed.
So you liked the opportunity to be obnoxious?
Well, not even that. I just enjoyed sort of putting on that costume. Like I felt like I was able to do it. But as far as living in New York, like it was not for me, which is why I left 3 years later. I lived in New York for only a short period of time, and I'm much more suited for Los Angeles, where I live now, and I really do like the vibe in Chicago, where I'm from. But it felt like New York was an important thing to do to explore the career path that I had just started. It just felt like there was more nightlife, more opportunity to make music and to perform.
Mm-hmm. So you got there in 2012.
Yes.
What are your memories of those first days?
Well, I moved in, I stayed with a friend, and then the hurricane hit and the city shut down. So we spent like a month not doing anything.
Oh wow, that long.
Yeah, I mean, not a month, but a couple weeks. Especially after, I guess when I used to tell that story, I was like, I moved in, I was crashing on an air mattress in her living room in her 1 bedroom apartment, and then the hurricane hit, and we were stuck inside for so long. Now thinking about being stuck inside in this pandemic world, I'm like, very different story, but. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I was exploring stuff. I pretty quickly got a bike. I was living in Brooklyn. I was biking around. My friend is a little bit older than me and a lesbian, so my initial social scene was just like all lesbians and all sober people. So it was like a lot of like AA meetings and lesbians and bike rides.
The dream.
The dream, truly the dream. And then a couple of my friends who I'd had sort of previously, I started hanging out with them, and they, friends from Chicago or friends from college who were like living in the city, they I forget how I heard about some of these parties, but I started going out every once in a while to these little parties. There were a couple parties in Manhattan and a couple parties in Brooklyn. I never really did. It took me like a year and a half to get to Hell's Kitchen. I never really went to Chelsea. Like all the like sort of like iconic gay like neighborhoods. It was just. It was not for me. I was like keeping, to myself or being in Brooklyn. And then, after I went to a handful of these parties, I, did the thing where I like found who the promoter was, or I met a DJ, or, any of those things. And I sort of weaseled my way in, and I was like, these are my music videos. Like, I'm a performer. And then once I started performing, I think I performed at like 2 or 3 of these like queer parties, and a lot of it were, is sort of the same group of people would just bounce around from venue to venue depending on who was hosting. And once I did 1 or 2, I was like on the list. I was like on the sort of like in the Rolodex. And so, I at that time it was very much like, oh, if so and so can't perform, we can get Big Dipper, or if this, drag queen off TV can't make it, we can get Big Dipper. It was always sort of like that, like backup. But I kept proving myself. And then eventually, when I left New York, I was able to sort of return and be a bigger deal headliner. Like after I moved away after a couple years and my career continued, when I would contact promoters, I'd be like, hey, I'm coming back to New York for a trip. And they were like, oh my God, amazing. We'll do a party around you. And that was sort of a cool feeling to like return to that scene, but having like built my career a bit more.
Done the thing.
Well.
And so in amongst all of that, you started performing at Westgay.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a party promoter, an artist, a writer, a DJ, a fashion icon. He's all of these things. His name is Frankie Sharp, and he had a party in Manhattan called Westgay, and it was at a venue called the Westway, and it was on the West Side, and I heard about it. I heard it as like the hot ticket. It was like, this is the best Tuesday night party. And literally when I moved to New York, I was like, who has a party on a Tuesday night?
That was my reaction as well. I was like, Tuesday, what?
Exactly. But after living in New York for a little bit, I'm like, girl, there's a party Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in New York. So the first time I went, in New York is a thin island, about 14, 18 blocks, long or whatever. The alphabets, and then all the way over to 12th or I guess 14th Avenue, and then there's more of the Hudson. But this was, you would get off the train and then you had to walk. Like you had to walk. It was like a good 10 or 15 minutes.
Because the train lines are all weird, aren't they? Like
Well, especially downtown, because it was in a more industrial area, it was like the streets were wider and it was like a bunch of warehouses and parking garages. So it wasn't like in the village where there's like a train stop every whatever and the streets are all gnarly. So you would get off and you would walk. And there was always a line out front, and the person who worked the door is named Marcus. Kind of a drag queen. It became apparent more and more of like club kid vibe. Because I never saw Marcus like get on stage, but always a huge look, tons of makeup. And Marcus was a cunt at the door. I mean, but also very sweet. The more you knew Marcus, the more Marcus would let you in. Just like iconically New York working a gay party. Like that's the stereotype.
So like you would be terrified to try and enter the club. Is that the vibe?
Yes. And what I would do is I would wait in line. I would always wait in line. And there were times when I was on the list, but I would wait in line because I have never, ever, ever felt comfortable walking past a line of people waiting to just be let into the club. The only times I ever did that was when I was performing. When I was like on the poster for that club, then I would walk into the front of the line. But in my mind, if you're on the list to get in, that doesn't mean you get in before other people. It just means you get in without paying.
So you stood out in freezing New York weather from principals.
Sometimes it was freezing and embarrassment and like confidence. Like I was like, what am I going to say to someone? And also sometimes it was like, I didn't know if I was on the list. Like sometimes I would message a person who was like quote unquote hosting and say, hey, can I get on the list? And they were a friend of mine, but they wouldn't message me back. And I have been a person who like sees a thing and does it because I've looked at it on my phone, but not confirmed it. So I didn't want to walk up and then be told like, no, you're not on the list, and then have to turn around and go back. And I wasn't there every single Tuesday night. I didn't stay until closing every night. I wasn't super close with all these people. So some people never had to be on the list because it was their actual friend group, not their like club friends.
Yeah.
You know the difference between friends you just see out of the club versus like we're having dinner together. Eventually some of those people from that scene became like we're having dinner together and we talk on the phone friends, but that took a while.
But so let me just understand how terribly polite you are, because it's not a very American thing.
No.
So if you go into a shop and you need help, are you forthright with asking for help?
Yeah, but I'll do it politely, and I won't do it while they're talking to someone.
Wait, but no one does that, do they?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, that's what I meant about the New York costume.
Like, just really,
you could walk in. Well, and they would say, "I'll need help when you're done," while two people are talking.
Wow.
Because in their mind, they're going, "I'm letting you know I'm next in line." And so in their mind, it's not rude. It's just letting you know. I'll be over here when you're done. I need help with jeans. You know what I mean?
Wow. And so how are you then if you get a meal and it's not cooked properly or it's not what you ordered? Are you good at being assertive?
Yeah, but again, politely.
Oh, okay.
You know.
All right. So just getting a measure.
And if it's purely my taste, then I will take responsibility. Like if I get a meal and I've ordered it, like, you know, I like calamari, I like squid, but I was in Mexico a few years ago with my family and I ordered the octopus and they just put an octopus on my plate. Head, all of it. They put all of it on. But I'm like, that's how they serve it. And I'm not going to send that back and be like, I didn't like that. So I like ate the tentacles because that's what I'm used to eating. I was like, I'm not eating the head. And then I just ordered something else as well. I was like, oh, because, you know, so I'm not that kind of a dick. But if I said like no almonds and you cover my salad in almonds, I'm sending it back.
Okay, this is really useful information for me. So
I don't know why. So the first time I went to Westgay, I waited in that line. I went with no one. I'm also the type of person who will go out by myself. I've been sober for almost a decade as well. So I don't drink. I don't smoke weed.
Did those lesbians influence you?
The reason I hung out with them is that I was sober before I got to New York. So when I
Okay.
showed up, I fell arms first, or head first into a lesbian sobriety community.
Thank you, lesbians.
Yes, exactly. So I have no fear or issue with going out to clubs or parties by myself. Because ultimately, sometimes people go out and it's like they look at the end of the night and they've spent $140 or something like that on like drinks and cabs and getting. And I would always like take the train, like listen to music or like read something, like not a book, but something I could like paper that I could fold into my pocket or throw away. Walk to the club, wait in line, get let in fully by myself, get like a free water or pay $3 for a seltzer, and then just like dance and like look around and meet people. And the first time I went to Westgay, I think I got there at 10:30 and no one was there. I think the doors to the party opened at 9. The DJs normally like started messing around at 10, but they were just like literally practicing or whatever. And the party didn't actually get fun or interesting until 1 a.m.
On a Tuesday.
And then the height of it was around 2 or 2:30. And then last call was around 3:45. And then the party would be cleared out by 4. And on nights when I performed there, I would easily get home at 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
So just like quick side note, just loving what a geek you are. The difference then between Chicago and New York, like if you were to go to a club in Chicago at 10:30, would there be people there?
Well, it would be. See, that's the thing. Is like I never really did the party scene or the club scene in New York or in Chicago, and so I would go to a lot of art parties or like salons where people would perform or like shows with after parties. So I did have an experience with like going to or house parties, which were always earlier. So I did have an experience of going to places at 10 or 10:30 and it being like bumping. But Chicago definitely has the like club and party scene. I just wasn't tapped into it. I only learned about it in New York, really. And the space, so Westgay, the place was called the Westway, and it essentially had 3 rooms. All in all, it was a pretty small club, but it had enough space to really pack people. There was the main room that had like an elevated DJ platform that also served as like a VIP space. So it was full, packed to the brim with people, had 2 stairs, 4 or 5 steps on either side, going up on either side to it, and then the big DJ booth. And then directly in front of that was also VIP seating, which felt like the most VIP seating, but in my mind was the worst place to be. Because you couldn't see the DJ, you couldn't see the screens, you couldn't see anything. But the people who sat there just wanted to be seen, didn't want to see what else was going on. In the center of that room was a runway. It was about a 3 or 4 foot elevated, the width of a runway, and that was the stage.
Because it used to be a strip club, didn't it?
It actually, I think, still was a strip club, just not on Tuesday nights. Or maybe used to be, and then it was like a straight venue for the rest of the week or whatever. This was like a pop-up queer event.
Yeah. And so this elevated stage was like where people would strip.
Well, there were go-go boys on the stage, and they would sort of strip a little bit. But all the performance, Westgay, Frankie Sharp, who threw the party, had... like he was iconic at booking talent. He booked people who 3 years later got record deals. He booked people as they were coming up in the scene. And on the same night, he would book like 4 people. And so like it would be like, like a rap artist, a music artist. It would be a drag queen. It would be, maybe like a stripper, burlesque dancer, but like cool burlesque, not like traditional burlesque, I guess, like sort of, in a modern way. And then he would just like randomly book dancers and be like, hey, when we play this song, you guys take the stage and I'll give you a bottle. Like, he was just really, really good at creating an atmosphere. And there would be like a performance like every, after 1 a.m. It was like every hour there would be something. But I remember a few times when I performed there, I was one of 2 musical acts, and like people who had like big followings. And then other times I performed with like drag queens off of TV. Like, he always had something going on. And that was in the main room. And a lot of people, like, that stage is wild because it's, going back to theater, being a theater kid, it's fully in the round. There's people everywhere. It's a nightclub, so they don't really have a good live sound system. So you have to scream into the microphone, no monitors, and I don't like to perform with my vocals on a backing track. I like to be on an open track, and that makes it even harder in a club. So you just had to be like, crank it and like yell into the microphone. And the audience is right there, literally right there, because that stage is only like 2 feet off the ground. So they're like right at, their heads are all at your crotch level. You're looking at that was a really amazing place to sort of cut my teeth in nightlife performance.
There is the other thing as well, because nightclub gigs are really tough because people haven't come to see you. They've come to like get drunk and to dance and to flirt with people. And so in lots of ways, when you come on stage, they're just like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell? Do I have to pay attention to this person? And like, and like getting that, like just pushing through that and being enthusiastic and being like, yeah, that is tough.
Well, that party is where I learned about, I'm going to give you 3 songs in under 5 minutes and each with a costume change and a reveal, backup dancers, sound design, explosion. It's like, I learned it was like, I started looking like a Boy Scout. That whole thing was snap rigged and Velcro. My dancers ripped it off me. I'm in like lederhosen. The song changes. We do group choreography. Then I go over here. I strip down to a thong. People are putting dollar bills in my jockstrap. It's just like, I was like, boom, boom, boom. That's really where I learned it, because anytime the music would dip, you just heard everyone talking. It's not that they weren't paying attention, but they didn't pay a ticket to see your show. It's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I really learned about that.
That is really tough.
It was good, though. It was a great learning experience. And then, so there's that main room, and then the side room had a bar in it, and it was mostly the only room where you could sort of like talk to someone without screaming, because you could hear the residual music from the main room. There was the bar, and in that little bar room, there was a tiny stage that was just meant for people who were like fucked up and really feeling themselves. It had a little pole on it and mirrored walls, so people would get up there and like take pictures or dance around.
So just show-offs.
And then the back room was the last room. And ultimately, as the more and more I went to the party, was the room I liked to be in. It had a second DJ. And in the main room, he would often have 2 or 3 DJs throughout the night. And it was club music. I wouldn't say pop music. If pop music got played in the main room, it was remixed. But it was really like housey and club, really dancey. Not cheesy dancey, like New York dancey. And then in the back room, it was whatever the DJ wanted to play. And oftentimes my friend Anthony would DJ back there. So it was like SoundCloud rappers, classic hip hop, just like really, like it felt like a basement party in high school to me. And that back room was where people smoked. You're not allowed to smoke indoors, but everyone just smoked in that back room anyways. So it was like people were doing drugs and smoking and just listening to that. But I loved that vibe in that back room because it felt like intimate and smaller and kind of exclusive. And I always like preferred the music back there. And so eventually I DJ'd in that back room a few times. And it was like, that was one of my first ever DJ gigs was in that back room. And I'm not a pro DJ. I would just play songs off my computer. I used a little DJ program. My mixing was all trash, like whatever. But I remember the first night I DJ'd in that back room, and you have to do it as a 5-hour DJ set. You know, like he wants you to start at, 11 and you go until the bar closes at 4 a.m. or whatever. It was like the day after Rihanna's Bitch Better Have My Money came out.
And so you just played that on loop for 3 hours.
Well, of course I'm going to play that song. Some man offered me, he was like, can you play Rihanna, Bitch Better Have My Money? And in my head, I'm like, yes, of course. But I just held my hand up and I rubbed my fingers together like money. He gave me $50. So I just played it.
Only the once.
Yeah. I mean, I played it again later at the end of the night. But.
I mean, for 50 quid, for $50, I'd be playing it like 5 or 10 times.
Well, that was what was funny is like I was about to play it anyways. It was like next up. Like I had it like set aside. I was like, oh, I'm going to play this then. And he was like, do that. And I was like, I just made $50.
And so then did you try that trick ever again?
Every time. Anytime someone asks me for a request, I say, okay, well, how much money do you want to pay me to do that?
And did it ever work?
Yeah, all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Like how much money are we talking?
Anywhere from $5 to $20.
Wow.
Just because people, I mean, like I always just say to them, I say, okay, cool. Like you can make a request. If you want to play it, if you want me to play it, pay me money and I'll just play it. But you can make a request. I don't need to take your request. Like you weren't hired to curate music for 4 hours. I was. So I'm going to. I'm happy to listen to your requests. Sometimes people request songs that I'm like, yes, I want to play that. And other times they request a song I don't want to play. So if it's a song I don't want to play, I'll tell them I'll play it if they pay me. I don't care. It's 3 minutes.
But it can completely kill the vibe in the room.
Well, no, because I'll only do that for songs that I know everyone loves. I just personally don't love.
Okay, like what?
I don't know, like a Selena Gomez song, or whatever, some very popular artist that I'm uninterested in, but everyone else probably knows the words to, or I'm sick of the song. It's like the only thing I'm worried about is like you're gonna look at me and think, oh, he played that song. But if you pay me, I don't really care.
So we've kind of gone all over the place. Your first time there, you schlepped from the subway, you stood in line. Oh no, was there a line or did you just get straight in because the place was empty?
No, there was always a line. In the beginning of the night, they kept the line for appearances because I remember waiting in the line and it moved, but it always moved really slowly. And once I got in, no one was inside. And I literally was like, what? Oh my God. That is like that full on bullshit line that they do in New York. Unfortunately, when you get somewhere at 10:30 and then it starts getting interesting at 1, you've already been there for 2.5 hours. You're sort of spent on the space. And so as this continued, I was in a relationship at the time with someone who would come out like when I was performing and support me and whatever. But he was like older than me and wasn't really into partying and like had a job and shit. And so there were times when we would like make dinner at home, watch a movie, fall asleep on the couch, wake up, have some ice cream, chat. He would start brushing his teeth, getting ready for bed. I would hop in the shower, and then it would be 12:45 at night. And I'm like, okay, see you in a little bit. And I would go out to the club. Like we would have a full night at home.
Wow.
And then I would go hop on the train, go out to the club, whatever, come home, go to the deli, get a sandwich, fall asleep at 6:30 in the morning after watching, a show on my headphones or whatever. And then he would go to work at 7 or 8 in the morning, get up early. And then I would, sort of wake up around 2 in the afternoon.
That's the life.
And I remember, okay, so there were a few times when I used the bathroom there.
Only a few.
Yeah, and I'll tell you exactly why. The bathroom scene was really challenging in this place because there were no big bathroom. There wasn't like some big sort of multi-purpose, like a bunch of stalls, urinals, whatever. It was individual single-use bathrooms, and there were like 5 of them. And so it was really unclear, like there was a line, you would sort of wait in the line, but to get to the bathrooms, you could access the hallway from both sides. And so if this was like if this was a sober environment, it would be very clear that the line was over here, and whichever door opened up first, this person would then go. But so many people were just stumbling around drunk, the amount of times that a person would come around from the other side of the hallway and someone would open the door at the exact moment and then they would just go into the bathroom. So you could end up waiting in that line for like 40 minutes. And that's where you really had to use that like that New York mentality of like, no, we were here first. Like, you can't do that. And as a sober person, I felt like
that couldn't be your role.
Yelling, I was just like, I can't deal with this. So I honestly, because I didn't drink, I wouldn't spend the night drinking. And I remember I would have like seltzer water the whole time I was there. I wouldn't be like pounding drinks. So, if I would leave the house at 12:30 and be back around 4, it's like if I wasn't pounding water all night long, it's like I wouldn't have to piss while I was there. And then after I started performing, I got privy to the backstage, which was upstairs in the manager's office. That's where everyone would change and keep their bag. And there was like a bathroom upstairs. And so when I would catch one of the people who was working the party, and I would be like, hey, how are you? As they were going up the stairs, and I would like go with them and we would like make small talk and then be like, I'm just going to pee real fast. And I would use that bathroom upstairs. Because inside those individual use bathrooms, I mean, people were fucking, doing drugs, taking rank shits. Like it was a bad scene.
Fucking and doing drugs, I understand. But couldn't you shit at home?
Not if you're on a bunch of cocaine, it gives you the squirts.
Does it?
I don't know. I don't do drugs.
I don't know enough about this. Like, why would you want to do drugs if it made you like need to shit? And then you had to queue for 40 minutes behind Big Dipper getting angry at you for cutting the queue.
I would swallow my anger.
Well, I have to say, you I think you'd fit right in the UK. There's a massive queuing culture, lots of tutting, lots of judgment if you cut the queue. I think you'd fit in.
Oh, I love that.
I'm feeling like lots of affinity to your plight, and yeah, remembering times when I've been like, I'll just wait till I get home to pee because I don't want to like have to deal with that.
Exactly.
But so how do you find being the sober person in a nightclub? Do you find that inhibits you, or are you like not that bothered about talking to people or having a good time?
I'm not that bothered. I mean, I definitely have a shorter, what's it called? I just have a little less patience with super drunk people, and it's not anything personal. I do not judge them. But if I find myself in a conversation, and this happens often at gigs where I will have just performed and someone is wanting to talk to me about their opinions about me, their perception of my performance, and their like thoughts on my like body or my merch or like whatever. You know what I mean? Because they've just seen me and I've just offered up my, I'm like, this is what I do and here I am. So when they sort of corner me, either when I'm selling merch or if they're like a friend of one of the other performers or the bar and they come backstage and they're like, yeah, so I first saw you when that is not for me. I'm like, I hope you're having fun. You know what's fun? Dancing. We should go dance. And then I'll get them out and I'll just come back into the dressing room. I'm happy.
Wait. It's because you're anticipating that they're going to like serve you a shit sandwich, not because you can't take compliments.
No, it's because when they're incoherent, they're blackout drunk. I don't care if it's a compliment or not. I don't need to have a conversation with no one driving at the wheel. You know what I mean? So when it's like that, because when people are very, very drunk, it's a lot of like, no, what I'm saying is, and I'm like, no, I know what you're saying. Like, you've said it 4 times. Like, and it's always in that moment where I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm wiping sweat from every corner of my body. I'm packing my merch back up. I'm waiting for the shady promoter who owes me money to show up to pay me. I'm happy to socialize and everything once work is done. I'm like, once you give me my money, once I know all my stuff is back, I get my flash drive from the DJ, I'm all packed up, I'm ready to go. Let's stay and hang out and chat. But, it's challenging because a bar, a party, a club, that is a place that is meant to be for release and fun and having a good time. I work in those spaces. I am also a workaholic and I take my work very seriously. I feel like the sign of a good bar owner or a good bartender or a good, person who works at a club is that they can balance those two things really well, and they can have a casual fun conversation with the clientele as they're also running back to the office to make change for the till or whatever. I don't really have that. When I'm working, I'm like laser focused on the work. So sometimes, in order to avoid a conversation where someone is sort of just like going on and I'm like focused on work, I try to just get them out of my way.
See, I'm right with you on the cue thing, but I think like with drunk people, it kind of like kicks in my maternal instincts or something, paternal instincts, and I'm always just like, I need to look after you because you're going to like end up like choking on your vomit or something. I need to make sure you're okay, which is a total waste of time. What the hell's wrong with me?
Well, in LA, to also answer the initial question about like how does it feel to be sober, I love it because I can drive myself wherever I go. It's amazing. I find good parking because I'm not like taking an Uber somewhere. I find good parking. I will drive to the middle of downtown Los Angeles to play a club and circle 20 minutes looking for free street parking. I'm that person very much. So I love it because then I can leave and I can go do whatever and drive myself home or go get food. And I feel a freedom in that. Sometimes I think like, oh, if I were fucked up, I would like stay drinking at the bar or like have to get an Uber home, have to deal with, whatever other people. So it's, I see it as like a blessing.
Yeah, it is really interesting though when you're in music and that's like your workplace is bars and clubs and things. And that's kind of like an expectation that that's what you do, that you drink and that you hang out and you network.
Right.
Yeah, it can just feel like a massive waste of time. But I don't like people, so I'm probably not the right person to talk to you about that. So you got into the rhythm. You like figured out what time to go. You watched movies, had a shower, ate ice cream before going out. So you were all energized and ready. Like what?
Right.
Like, talk me through a standard night.
Oh, I mean, it's all those things that I said. You wait in line, you get in, the DJ's in the main room, there's performances, the back room. There was a lot of like going outside to take like smoking breaks. Did I still smoke them? I didn't smoke cigarettes, but I used to. All my friends smoke cigarettes. So I would pop outside and smoke cigarettes and do whatever. And then I would always, if I was still energetic at the end of the night, I would take the train home. And if I felt tired, I would take a cab home, and there wasn't a lot of traffic, so it wouldn't be too expensive. And I would always, always, always go to the deli and get like a sandwich.
Like the same sandwich every time, or were you like pushing the boat out?
For a long time, I loved that in New York you can go to a bodega 24 hours a day and get like a breakfast sandwich.
At any time of the day.
Like
What is a breakfast sandwich?
Like sausage, egg, and cheese or bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. Yeah. So that was mostly what I did for a long time.
And do you remember like the first time that you performed there?
Yeah. The first time I performed, I had seen a bunch of performances leading up to that. And so the first time I performed there, I definitely had taken note of what worked and what didn't work. And so that's when I employed all of those tactics like that I talked about with like costume changes and 3 songs in 5 minutes. And like I built the thing specifically for that show. And I had 2 dancers with me and we had rehearsals and I like explained ahead of time. And that was the first time that I went back early. I told them, no, we're not going to perform till 2 a.m, but I want to get there at 11 because no one will be there and we can stand on the stage and do a spacing rehearsal. Because most club acts don't do that. They don't do a sound check. They don't do anything. But I was like, let's do this and come early, and then we can hang out upstairs until the party gets going. But that was sort of like the only other time I went back early because I had learned my lesson after the first time.
Oh, you've got the hustle. That's very impressive. I wanted to talk about the going home at like 5 a.m. in the morning and like
Yes.
how exciting that is sometimes.
Sometimes it is exciting. Sometimes, you know, you look up at the sky on those. I'll tell you this, on those nights when I had energy, on those nights when like something hit and my friends were at the club and like whatever, and like it was 4 o'clock and the security was literally sweeping and they turned the lights on, but I had sort of been around long enough where I could like hang out a little bit, and like the party promoters are like counting cash upstairs, and then it's like it's 4:30 and they're like, okay, everyone's really got to go, and then this like pack of insanely dressed. I remember one time I went to the club literally on the train in Brooklyn. I took the train. It was after midnight. I walked to the train. I was wearing Daisy Dukes, must have been 6 inches long from my waist, like tiny little shorts. My thighs were rubbing together the moment I left the house. And a crop top with my belly out, crop top, t-shirt, Daisy Dukes, baseball hat, big chain. And I had like a little jacket, like a camo jacket, but I tied it around my waist. And I rode the train like that at midnight by myself all the way. And I wasn't even with a gaggle of friends. I rode the train. So, and I went to the club.
But was it a typical New York thing where no one looked at you?
No, I mean, I was coming from, it's not like I was taking the train like within like the East Village or in Chelsea or whatever. It was like I was coming from a residential area in Brooklyn. So it was like people on the train are like coming home from work or like going to their night job or whatever. But, you know, that idea of emerging from this club, that, you know, that 4:30, 5 a.m., there's a little bit of like a new day smell and taste in the air. I definitely remember leaving parties and sort of seeing the beginning of the glow of the sun rising. And then it's just like a group of queer people all dressed insanely walking down like the middle of a street, you know, on the way to, there was like a McDonald's by the train station. It's like, are people getting McDonald's breakfast or whatever? But I also remember in that same way doing little things to modify how I was dressed or how I looked for the train ride home. So like, you know, I talk about tying that thing around my waist. So when it was time to take the train home at the end of the night, when it was 5 a.m, I could put that and I could unroll my Daisy Dukes. And then I was just sort of like in jean shorts and like a long sleeve top that was buttoned all the way up.
You're prepared for everything, aren't you?
Well, because I never wanted, I think one time I went to the party and I brought a bag. I'm like, why do I have a bag? Like I had like, you know, because in New York, you sort of like carry a bag everywhere you go. And it's like, I had a backpack at the club and it didn't even have anything in it. It was just like, you know, like an umbrella and like a magazine and whatever. And I was like, so I got really good at like figuring out little, like what can also be a fashion item, but also like us, you know, like
life hacks.
If it's cold at the end of the night, I can cover up. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. Because I used to always be really too tight to put my to put my cloak in the cloakroom. Well, put my jacket in the cloakroom. Because it'd be like, oh, I don't want to pay £1.
Right.
How do I figure this out?
Well, to me, it was always about access. Because like the coat room at the end of the night, I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to wait in that line. Like I always just want to be able to like leave. Again, going back to the bathroom. Like that's why I didn't like drink a lot while I was there. I could have ordered like sodas or bottles of water. I could have chugged all night. But I would literally be like, okay, if I'm going to dance, I'm going to sweat so then I can have a bottle of water and I never have to deal with that bathroom without having to pee. So, yeah.
And when you're done, you're like, right, I'm off. I'm not going to stand in line to get my coat. I'm just off.
And then if I had the energy, I would really, really pump it to the train. And then, you know, and New York is getting, I think, worse and worse about this with the budget cuts to the public transit. But at 4 a.m, the next train comes in 38 minutes. And so you know, like, so you either catch it immediately or it says 20 minutes, and it included a transfer where you had to wait as well. So I definitely had to be in the mood. I definitely had to have my phone have enough charge still on it. You know, this was many years ago. My phone would be dead at the end of the night, so that I could listen to something. You know, I would think about all those things because I was sober and I wasn't drunk. So to me, all of it was the same experience. I think there's something really different with getting wasted and then just going like, I'll just take a cab home, you know, like do whatever. I would literally stay at the train and be like, do I want to spend $38 or give up 38 minutes? What do I want to do here? That was what I went through.
How warm is my bed? But because that's the thing, like, yeah, in winter, like, fuck everything. I'm getting a cab. I'm going home. Right. But like that magic of like in the middle of summer when the days are really long and like by 4:30 there's already those kind of like those signs of the day starting and just all that promise and excitement. Like I just love that kind of magic of lingering on those. And then I have that like that stupid optimism of like, I'm just not going to go to bed. I'm just going to do all these really productive things. Yes, I'm going to embrace the day. The day is going to be magical. And then by the time I'm home, I'm like, off and out.
Fully.
But yeah, I love that. I love that feeling. If you had the opportunity to go back in time and go to Westgay for one more night, what would you do?
Oh my God. I would not be so focused on who was there and what people thought of me. And that was sort of influenced by a lot of things. That was influenced about me being brand new to New York, me never really being in club spaces, and me trying to like build and launch my career as a performer. And so when I would walk into those spaces, I was very aware of people that I had seen from the internet, people whose music videos I had seen, people who had reputations in nightlife. I was clocking everyone and trying to figure out who people were so that I just knew what I was doing there. But now, you know, being older, having been around the world more, having been in many, many club spaces, I would be more relaxed. I think I was always kind of high strung, and I can guarantee you, there were times that I went to this party that I did not want to go to the party, but I knew that I wanted to perform there in a month, and I hadn't been in 2 weeks, and I was going out of town or whatever. You know, like, oh, I'm going to be out of town these 2 weeks, but I want to perform.
So you were like researching?
Well, not even researching. I was showing face.
Oh, wow.
Because unless you were very, very famous, you weren't going to get a gig if you never paid the door entry. If you were a person who never went to that party and then said, hey, can I perform here? Frankie was not going to let you perform. And every time that I went there, I enjoyed myself. But there were definitely times that I went as a career move, as a networking thing, as I was like, I want to show my face so these people get used to seeing me so that when I perform, they're not rolling their eyes and they're actually able to like take me in to what I'm giving them. And so I think there was a lot of that in the beginning. And so if I could go back, I would just like, you know, just let loose, just have a good time, just dance. And the other thing, I would go early because you couldn't dance late at night. All you could do was bounce. There was so packed, you really couldn't dance.
Did you ever go to Westgay? Well, if you did, I would love to hear from you. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter with the username KAndersonMusic and tell me what you got up to. This sounds like an amazing night and I especially want to see photos. Also, make sure to keep up with Big Dipper by following him on Instagram and Twitter. His profile is Big Dipper Jelly. And make sure you also check out his podcast with Meatball. It's called Sloppy Seconds and it's available to listen to anywhere. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I've been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, which is called Well Grown Boys and is also playing underneath my talking right now on all streaming platforms. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on Apple Podcasts, or just told someone who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen to. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.